your first jobs, I think?
Yes, my first job was in the summer after 11th and 12th grade, being a bicycle messenger for the Empire Speedy Messenger Service. Then I
That's always on the resume.
So that was my very first job. Then I dropped out of the University of California at Berkeley. I went to an entire week's worth of classes, and then saw Big Brother and the Holding Company at Winterland, and felt I had much more important things to do than go back to class.
It's kind of cool to have dropout on your resume as well.
So I then got into the predictably bad behavior. Got arrested 6 weeks before my 18th birthday for an assortment of drug charges. Was lucky enough that my dad got a lawyer that got me back to New York. Then I wanted a job, so I didn't have to live with my parents. And through a classified ad in the New York Times, got a clerical job at Billboard. I had no idea what Billboard was. I didn't know there was a music business. In those days, you didn't have the New York Times printing charts, or there was such a thing as a chart. But it turned out that my job was being a clerk in the chart department, where you would call stores all day long and ask them what was selling. It was manually compiled. And after a month or two, I found out that there were people on the other side of the office that weren't that much older than me, who got paid to write their opinions about records and concerts. So I had low self-esteem given my poor academic record, but I knew I could do that.
Yes, sure.
So I
had opinions.
So I badgered them to let me write, and they would give me periodically the assignments that none of the older writers wanted. Old being somebody who was 30. And the cultural change then between being 19 and 29 was huge. So these guys that were in their 30s had zero interest in the rock and roll stuff. They wanted to go to the Copacabana, get free drinks and free dinner.
Yeah.
That was the assignments I could never get. But when Woodstock came along...
Well, I'm sorry, just to interrupt. If I remember correctly, you were saying that even the idea that there was a genre that was worth reporting on and paying serious attention to, which was rock and roll, was kind of new at that point.
Well, I mean, they had reviews. Fillmore East was open. There was this guy, Ed Oakes, who I was jealous of, who got to review a lot of shows at the Fillmore. So, it was part of the business.
Yeah.
The Beatles were... I got a free copy of the Beatles' White Album within a few months of being there from the promo guy at Capitol. That's when I knew I wanted to stay in the music business. So that rock and roll was part of the mix. They covered other genres too, obviously R&B, country, and pop. But rock shows were not the coveted assignments for the writers because you didn't get free food and drinks.
Yeah.
So they were the less desirable assignments. And Woodstock, nobody wanted to go. So they said, well, nobody else wants to go. Do you want to go? I said, yes. So I was able to go to Woodstock in a limo.
In a limo?
With the publicist, Jane Friedman, who is still alive. I think she runs an art gallery downtown, and she was my patron saint for many years, wrote about it in rhapsodic terms for Billboard. It was my first cover story, and now 50 years anniversary, they reprinted it, and I got to talk about it.
That's cool. Can we find
the amazing thing about rock and roll is stuff that was then becomes part of history. You don't think of it as history at the time, but some of it, like Alice Cooper and Zeppelin and Woodstock, end up being part of cultural history.
Right, and Al Cooper.
And Al Cooper, who I am a huge fan of, even though Dennis didn't play with him.
Wow, so many things. Did you know what it was going to be? Did you know the phenomenon it was at the time?
Yeah, I didn't know that I'd even be alive 50 years later, or that was even a thing. But I knew that it was amazing. I mean, the vastness of the crowd. And these artists were iconic. Hendrix and Janis Joplin and Johnny Winter, and Joan Baez, pregnant, with the father being in jail for draft evasion. But the sheer size of the crowd was amazing. And even though I had sworn off drugs because of my confrontation with
the law,
self-destructiveness scared me straight. I still like the idealism and the mysticism of sort of the psychedelic idea.
Yeah.
And boy, it was so palpable.
Yeah.
You know, the phrase contact high, kind of a cliche, but everybody was just so, it was so beautiful, you know, for that brief moment. I think the movie captured it pretty well, but I knew it was very, very special. I had no idea how it would fit into the arc of cultural history, but I knew it was a thing, and the thing I wrote about it was appropriately rhapsodic.